Good day to you. I am Phintius the book dealer, and I know a discerning eye when I see one. What can I do for you today? Rare books are what you seek? Well, it just so happens that I do have one particular tome that I came across only recently. The book is entitled The Butcher of Armindale, and though I have had little time to study it, I have learned that it is a biography of sorts. It details the life of a man by the name of Cleon, who through his actions earned himself the title of the Butcher, a truly malevolent individual. It is a disturbing read, to say the least, but it might interest you. What do you say? I can sell it to you for a mere 1,000 gold. Here you are, my friend. Enjoy your new book. I'm sure you will find it a truly captivating read.
Have you looked around, Simyaz? It's amazing.
Ah, my friend, back again so soon. Did you enjoy the book that you purchased? It is indeed, but you bought it how you saw it, and I'm afraid that I have no idea what has happened to the rest of the book. I purchased it from a comrade of mine at another book dealership. Perhaps he knows what happened to the rest of the book. When I read the book, I felt a feeling of dread well up within me, almost as if the very act of reading it was tainting my soul. I do not deny that I am a superstitious man, but the images that the scrawled words formed in my head were too haunting for me to endure again. In truth, I believe that the book is cursed. His name is Kashan, and he can usually be found at Renoir's book dealership in Coral. If you do find him, be sure to tell him that I sent you. I do not doubt that he will assist you in finding the missing pages. I wish you the best of luck, my friend. Safe travels to you.
Pleased to meet you. I'm Estelle Renoir, and I deal in all sorts of rare books and the like. What can I do for you today? Kashan, the travelling book dealer? Well, he was here earlier, but he left to visit with relatives living not too far outside Coral. I would suggest staying at the local inn for a night or two until he returns. He shouldn't be too long. Farewell.
Join.
Welcome to the Oak Enclosure. This one is Talisma, your hostess. Our rooms and food are at your disposal. There's one available for the night. If you're interested, it'll be 10 gold. What do you say? The room is upstairs, first door to the left. Sleep well. Goodbye.
It is said that one loses many things when one goes to war. A single warrior in question will forfeit his friends and family, the safety and sanctuary of his home, and maybe even his very life. Yet a general, in command of a great many warriors, will soon lose his innocence, and even his sanity, as the guilt of his actions threatens to overcome him. But be that as it may, it is often wondered whether Cleon, the Butcher of Armindale, ever harbored any of those traits to lose.
It is time. My love. I have to go.
Don't go, Cleon. You know what will happen if you leave with them.
I have no choice. It is my duty and my responsibility. I will lead them this one last time. After that, it is done.
Yes, you will lead them to victory. I do not doubt that. But I do not believe that you'll be able to retire after this final siege. The desire for bloodshed courses through your very being like a wildfire. You will never be able to lay down your sword.
I have told you that I will throw in my blade and return to you, and so I shall. After Armindale falls, you and I will be together forevermore.
So you say. And so I hope, but I do not believe it to be true.
General, the regiment is formed up and is only awaiting your instructions.
I must go now. Rest assured, my love. I will return to you.
Do you want?
Hail!
I understand the Fighters Guild.
I have heard tell that you have been seeking me. My name is Kashan, and I deal exclusively in rare and specialist books. What can I do for you? And what book would that be? Oh, yes. Now I recall, The Butcher of Armindale. Yes, you are correct. I did indeed sell that book to Phineas. What of it? Yes. It would seem that there are. I sold it to Phineas in that state, under the agreement that he would not pursue the missing pages. I had thought that he would keep it for his collection, but it would seem that he was as eager to be rid of it as I was. I presume that you are seeking the missing pages from the book, but I am afraid that I can tell you nothing of that. 100 gold? Very well then, I will tell you everything. When I acquired the book from a renegade who found it in a certain dungeon, there were already pages missing. Yet the book captivated me. I read through it within hours and began searching desperately for the missing pages. Yet I found that the book was cursed. When I slept, the words on the pages sprang to life, and I found myself reliving the experiences of Cleon. The blood, the terror, the evil I witnessed, it has frightened me in a way that I have never been frightened before. I became scared of the book. I became desperate to sell it, and so I found Phineas, who purchased it from me without a moment's hesitation. Yet I found that I could not sell him the entire book for fear of what its words may do to him. Hence, I mutilated it and tore out several pages. I have kept the pages with me at all times since then. I am terrified of their words, but I find myself unable to throw them away. If that is what you wish, then it shall be done. But I warn you, you will not like where this story takes you. You will become enraptured by it, and terrified by it. You will come to dread the dreams it invokes, yet you will find yourself unable to look away. It will be your undoing, but better it be your undoing than mine. Here are the pages. You will want to know where to find the bandit that sold me the book, yes? Well, last I heard he was in Bruma handling some business transactions there. His name is Shan, and I would guess you can find him in the tavern. Now begone, and do not speak to me again.
What is it now? Greetings to you.
How are you?
I've been better. How about that?
Say your piece or stand aside.
Well met. What is it now? Hello.
Oh.
Ah! Stop touching me! You move like a pregnant cow.
And become death, destroyer of worlds.
Whoa!
Yes? Very well.
What?
For most heroes and villains, the passing into the afterlife occurs with a great deal of fanfare, sometimes cheering, sometimes mourning. but always there are those who will attempt to honor the dead in one form or another. Yet when Cleon the Butcher finally fell at the hands of an unknown assassin, no tears were shed, for no one, save for a select few, ever knew what had happened. The rest of Tamriel simply assumed that the tormented man had vanished into the wilderness, haunted by the spectres of the dead and forever stained with the blood of the innocent. Yet the truth of what happened
It is done. Cleon the Butcher has been properly entombed and will never be discovered down here. It seems strange that so great a man should vanish from history in such a way. Yes, he was a malevolent fiend, but he was still a great man. Surely he deserves more than this. Can you imagine the nightmare Tamriel would face if a necromancer came along and accidentally resurrected him? No, my friend. Cleon will eternally rest in peace here. His slumber in the next life will not be disturbed. And Tamriel will not have to endure his bloodthirsty nature ever again. Perhaps you are right. Come, let us depart from this place, and when we are certain that the tomb is properly sealed, we will end this once and for all, leaving only the blacksmith to know of the entrance to this place, and even he knows not what it is that he guards. It better be good.
I see you work with the Gray Fox. Shadow hide.
So, you are hoping to find some way to resurrect the Butcher of Armindale, I presume. You would not go to such lengths if that was not your intentions. Yet I wonder just how much thought you have put into this. Do you truly know what it is that you seek to awaken? You will recall that he lived and died during the early days of my time in Tamriel. You may also recall that the two of us had a hand at shaping him into the monster that we all know and love. I'm not sure that resurrecting Cleon the Butcher is a good way to redeem yourself for your pre-incarnation's crimes. And I sincerely doubt that he will be pleased to see you, should he ever learn who you really are. He was a fiend, before we made him into a more terrible fiend. There is no denying that you and I corrupted him, yet we only helped bring forth the shadows that lurked in his soul. We did not create them. He was tainted by his past and his insignificant origins, cursed by an unerringly unfulfilled desire to aspire to something. So desperate was he to escape his origins that he was willing to sell his soul to to you, or at the very least, your pre-incarnation. There are some things that he did during his life that haunt me to this day. I remember one incident in particular, involving a nobleman who owned a small estate somewhere east of Bruma. This particular nobleman owned a small, yet incredibly well-trained force of mercenaries who were tasked with guarding the estate. When warned by the Lord of Bruma of the threat that Cleon posed to the region, this nobleman scoffed the warning. So certain was he of his guard's superiority and Cleon's ineptness as a general that he outwardly mocked the Butcher. He sent a letter challenging Cleon to attack his estate and referring to him as an uneducated farmhand, amongst other things. Naturally, Cleon was infuriated by the letter and promptly sacked and destroyed the estate, capturing the nobleman before he could escape.
Alicia pauses as if attempting to collect her thoughts, and her eyes turn to you for guidance.
I remember the Butcher binding the nobleman to a pike and forcing him to watch as the nobleman's family, a wife and 2 daughters, were slaughtered. I remember Cleon holding the nobleman's eyelids open as he drank the blood that spewed from the wound in the side of his wife's neck. And I remember Cleon turning over the nobleman to a goblin clan from the surrounding area, with strict instructions that the nobleman be used to satiate their perverse pleasures.
Alicia's eyes grow dark, and her face turns stark white.
And I remember you laughing as the entire event took place. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps Cleon the Butcher is a good match for you after all. Or perhaps we will talk about this again later. I don't wish to speak of it anymore.
Hello, Associate. And so you are here at last. I was wondering how long it would take for you to arrive here.
The creature standing before you studies you intently, its face growing disappointed as his studies progress.
And yet, it would seem that you are not here. Well, not entirely yet. Your spirit has not become trapped in the abyss of the faithless. Which means you can only be here for one reason: the Butcher of Armindale. Who am I? I'm surprised that you do not recognize me. After all, we both occupy the same physical shell. Yet whereas you harbour the corporeal form, I am forever damned to remain in this nightmare. My husk to satisfy the vessel for your essence. My damnation to satisfy your desire to live forevermore. It hardly seems fair to me. This is the abyss of the faithless, a domain that I occupy because I was never given any opportunity to find my faith. Though I'm sure that you don't need me to explain that. Cleon, the Butcher of Armindale, on the other hand, occupies this place because of his hubris. His belief that he was superior to the gods in his mortal life. It is a punishment that he rightly deserves for his numerous crimes. Look all around you. You will see others, though most choose not to frequent this particular part of the abyss due to how dangerous it is. Me, however, I am here because I was waiting for you. I have been waiting for you for untold years. And now I find you, only to learn that you are not yet here. You are merely a traveller passing through what has become my home. He is deeper in the abyss, probably fighting for his very unlife. He chooses the demon as his companion and shuns all of us. Thus, his fate is his own. None of us will lift a finger to aid that monster if ever he should need it. If you are seeking him, then you had best hurry. It is not safe to remain in this place for too long a time, especially if you are not yet dead. I'd wish you safe travels, yet I have no reason to wish such a thing upon you. No, rather I hope that your luck runs short, else you and I may never speak again. And have no doubt about it, we have a great deal to speak about.
It is often said that a warrior is made up of two beings. One, the usually placid creature that lives the majority of the time and is timid, sociable, and comradic. The other, the beast.
Bloodlust. It is fading as the battle draws to a close. Who are you? And what are you doing in this godforsaken place? This battleground is no place for one such as you. I died. Yes. Now I remember. The assassins fell upon me as I walked down a back alley on my way from the tavern, back to the regiment. I remember their blades rising and falling with reckless abandon as they sought to tear me limb from limb. I remember drawing my blade and attempting to defend myself, but there were too many of them, and I was growing weak from loss of blood. If I am dead, then I presume that they have succeeded. Yet, if I am dead, what are you doing here? And what is this beast that claims to be me? Metaphor for the evil malevolence that has laid claim to my soul since the massacre at Armindale. That explains a great deal and justifies why I feel so comforted in the beast's presence. The two of us have fought as allies for centuries here. Yet, if I am to return, I will need to merge with the beast once again. Without it, I am but a shadow of my former self. You bring with you a map of the path back to life? I see that you harbor powerful necromancies indeed. Perhaps with your help, I can live again. Very well. Allow me a brief moment to commune with the beast. We shall use that map of yours to make our way back from the afterlife. We have battled in this place for an eternity. But now, it is time for us to go. It is done. And with the beast being a part of me once again, I know that it is time for me to return to the real world. Lead on, my friend. I shall follow you. Yes, at last. I live and breathe again. To think that despite all I have done to damn myself, I have cheated death, where so many others have failed. Yet I will admit that I could not have done it if it weren't for you. Ultimately, you have saved my soul, and for that, I will be forever in your debt. I have been trapped in the void of the faithless for a long time. Tell me, how long has it been since last I walked Tamriel? 200 years. 200 years. I can only imagine how much the lands must have changed since I died. I have a proposition that might serve to benefit both of us in the long run. What would you say to an alliance between you and I? We work together to cut down our enemies and make our fortunes in this new land. You know my history. You know of my unequaled skill with a blade. our opponents shall fall like wheat before the farmer's scythe. We shall be both terrible and invincible to behold. What say you? I knew that you would accept. How could any rational creature turn aside a warrior of my ability? So be it then. We shall travel together and leave a bloody path in our wake. Now, let's get going. The sight of my own grave unnerves me for some reason. Immortality. Foolishness. Absolute foolishness. The manner in which you conduct your battles is ill-suited to the conditions you face. You lack tact and strategy in your encounters. You seem almost desperate to throw away your own life by charging at the hordes when discretion is the better option. And the fights that you can win without unjustified risk, you dismiss as being not worth the effort. This is hardly the way for a potential leader to act. You listen to my words when I speak, but you do not seem to hear. Have you taken to blocking out rational advice when it is offered to you? Consider the concept of a wolf pack, the ultimate predator group in nature. Wolves are smart. They see the need for a single leader, and so they choose to follow an alpha male who is generally the smartest and strongest. Thus, by deferring to the most prominent pack member, the pack as a whole survives. Now let us face it, between the two of us, I am by far the superior in terms of intellect, and there can be no question of my battle prowess. I anticipate you will come to regret the decision to reject my offer, but for the meantime, I will let it lie. It is, after all, easy enough for me to simply be wary and ready to flee when one of your naive decisions leads us into a bloodbath. For now, I will continue to follow you, and instead mock your childish antics from behind. Let us depart. Immortality throughout history is within our grasp. I was just thinking of how amusing it is to watch the noble and valiant delude themselves as to the state of Tamriel. They fight so hard to serve the forces of good, only to ultimately end up being oppressed by powerful men, tyrants, warlords, and the like. It makes one wonder why they waste their lives serving others. I see that your thoughts lie along the same course as my own. You, too, can see the foolish facade that is the concept of good. If there is one thing that I am certain of in life, it is that the powerful will always take what they want, and ultimately, the good will never win. Those who serve the forces of good will constantly be bound by the chains that their morals place upon them. Those that serve themselves are not bound by such constraints, and hence will always ultimately win out. Naturally, when one has discarded morals and honor, one can focus solely on the desire to survive. And being a master of survival is the key to being unbeatable. No great hero that stands before the hordes ever survives for long enough to make a mark in history. Aside from a brief ink stain on a piece of parchment, courtesy of a minor scholar. This is because his honor and morals have damned him to ultimately lose out when faced by the dishonorable and moralless.
Hello.
Immortality. Continuing our earlier discussions on the hypocrisies of the good and honorable, and I would like to point out that I use those terms loosely. Have you ever contemplated why it is that these noble creatures are more devoted to their gods than their evil counterparts? Would you care to speculate on why that is? Ah yes, worship the great deity, and in return you will be rewarded in the next life. That is what you are saying, are you not? Well then, consider this. A good god lets evil things happen to good men, and an evil god lets good things happen to evil men. In other words, whether you are a goodly being or a malevolent creature like myself, your life will be blessed and cursed by good and bad things. Now, I serve no god whatsoever. I am more of the opinion that the gods should be serving me. Yet, up until the point where I died, my life was full of riches and joy. I had uncountable quantities of gold and women who waited on me hand and foot. Yet, a paladin that I came across on my third campaign had lived in poverty his whole life, and in his first battle, I cut him limb from limb. What does this tell you about the gods? It tells you that the gods help those who help themselves. Am I right? Of course I'm right. I had thought that that was more or less a given fact by now. During my life and my many campaigns, I crushed good and evil men beneath my armored boot. Some were devout, some were not. Hence, I have come to this conclusion. If the gods exist, they treat we mortals as a cruel form of sport. Like the spectators in the arena, they watch as we tear each other apart and place vast wagers on the outcome. They are mocking those who do not make their own path through life, regardless of the consequences. I hope that you can see the point that I'm making here. Let's get moving.
Showing your face was the last mistake you'll ever make.
Immortality throughout history. Reading through this biography on my life, the Butcher of Armindale has been a strange experience to me. Would you believe that for some reason the writer thinks that I am an evil, heartless creature? What possible justification can he have for that, do you suppose? A citizen of Armindale. A man who perhaps had a family or friends who fell to the swords of my soldiers, or to my own blade. Yes, such a person would undoubtedly blame me for what befell there, and would deduce that I must be a monster of a man. But in all reality, despite what he may believe of me, I'm hardly what one can call evil. Because I was merely doing that which I was commanded to do, and was in no position to refuse to do. Think of it this way. Is a sword evil because it kills innocent and guilty creatures alike? Of course not. Because it is merely a tool to be deployed in whichever fashion the wielder desires. One can hardly blame a sword if a murderer uses it to carve apart a helpless family. And so too, one can hardly blame me for destroying Armindale. I was merely the tool of my wielder, my own commander, who ordered me to destroy Armindale, and would have executed me if I refused. There is no difference between the sword and myself. Hence, I am not evil. You are right, of course. A sword is an inanimate object. It has no concept of morality, of right and wrong. And likewise, it is unable to refuse its wielder's instructions. I, on the other hand, had the option to refuse to lead the massacre, even though it would have cost me my life. That is the sole defining distinction between my analogy of the sword and myself. And so, by your own wording, and by my own inadvertent admission, I am in fact evil. Do not look so concerned. I have known it all along, and was merely curious to determine whether or not you would see the flaw in my logic. We'll discuss it further at a later date. Let's fall out.
Speak.
Immortality throughout history. Throughout the pages of Tamriel's history, there have been many talented warlords whose armies swept destructively across the land. Yet during the time of my tenure as a general, I was the most proficient of the warlords. I was unstoppable. I was invincible. But have you ever wondered what it was that made me so masterful at warfare? Your assumption is correct, though I believe that it goes a fair bit deeper than simply being able to outthink my opponents. I think it more likely that I succeeded because I had the ability to put myself within the mind of my opponent. To think how he thought and to feel what he was feeling. I could experience his emotions, his tensions and his fears, and use that information to second-guess the strategy that he was planning. Thus, I could counter any strategy he attempted to implement and remain one step ahead of him at all times. Yet, this skill had a drawback. One who faces the demons that haunt his opponents will ultimately suffer because of them. Because when you stare into the face of evil, evil stares right back at you. Their hatred, their desires, their thirst for conquest and blood, all of it began to weigh heavily upon my soul. Where once I believed in the concepts of morals and honor, through what I saw in my opponent's minds, I began to see the futility of such beliefs. I realize now that I was not always an evil creature, yet for every fiendish tyrant I fought, I found myself becoming more and more like them. Soon, I sympathized with their dark beliefs, and by discarding my morals, I became truly unbeatable. But to do it, I had to sell my soul to the demon inside. Perhaps I do, or perhaps not. I'm not too sure. I don't exactly regret being so great a warlord. But I cannot help but wonder what I might have been had I not been blessed, or perhaps cursed, with this ability. We will discuss it later. Immortality throughout. For every action that one performs, there are consequences that one will experience. Hence, for every action, there needs to be an underlying purpose. The majority of the populace of Tamriel frowned upon what I did in Armindale. They labeled me a monster, a murderer, and eventually, a butcher. But have you ever considered the purpose to my actions there? No, I am afraid that that is not the case, though I can see the justification with which you would make that your answer. To some extent, it was as you said, I wanted to prove myself by conquering the unconquerable. I wanted to return to my life with the retirement benefits of a general. I wanted to end my untarnished career with a victory of such magnitude that it would be remembered throughout the annals of history. And at the same time, I reveled in the bloodbath that followed. But ultimately, the real truth behind my actions was that I did it because I was compelled to do it. The fall of Armindale would make me a legend of my name. I would be remembered throughout eternity. My own desires, which form the core of my being, propelled me towards a collision with the great city. And like capturing an opponent's king in a game of chess, I saw it as a primary target to achieve my own goals. I would be immortalized in the pages of history. No, it wasn't. Rather than a glorious death atop the walls of an opponent's fortress, I was slain by several masked assassins in an alley. My body was buried in secret, my name scourged from the history books, and in the end I sold my soul for nothing because no one remembered me. Even now, I still seek some way for my legacy to live on. You would want me to train you in the art of warfare? To teach you how best to work your way into the mind of an opponent, and how to drive your minions into the battle? To what end? You would know my terrible secret, yet that will hardly make my legacy live on throughout eternity. And let's face it, you are hardly the sort of creature I would want associated with my strategies. Why should I train you? Yes, now that I consider it, you have indeed immortalized yourself. Your actions pale in comparison to my own, and yet you have integrated yourself into Tamriel's history far more firmly than I ever managed to. That is something we will discuss at a later date, but for now, we will discuss only strategy and how to look into the mind of your opponents. I find it pleasing to know that you have paid enough attention to me during our converse to know exactly what you needed to say to motivate me. That shows that you have potential as a leader. Let's get going. We will begin your training when next we have the leisure to do so. All right then. By my reckoning, it is about time that you and I began to discuss the concept of warfare and strategy. We will start small, and eventually work our way towards training you up to being a general. I'm going to assume that you have some basic concept of fighting in small groups, since you have fought with me at your side numerous times. So, we'll simply take the next step up the ladder and continue on from there. Are you ready? We will begin by looking at squad or section combat. A group of about 4 or more soldiers, and usually deployed with archers of engineers. In a large-scale combat, the strategy focuses mostly on using your numbers to outmaneuver an enemy. Yet, in section combat, you will need to utilize strategy in order to use each and every soldier to his maximum effectiveness. The first to be deployed are your archers, who will ultimately control the direction and speed of the enemy advance. Gaining the high ground is always the first objective, as it will allow your archers to effectively target any enemy within the opposing formation. And if possible, you should try and deploy your archers a reasonable distance apart, preferably at a fairly similar level. This is done to give the archers shooting arcs that cross, allowing you to hit the enemy formation from the front and from both sides. Obviously, when an enemy is under that much of an arrow storm, they will hardly be able to go on the defensive, and hence will have to attack. Are you keeping up so far? Good to hear. I always appreciate a student who can keep up. Next, you will deploy your warriors. In a house-to-house encounter, like that you would find in a city, groups of 2 or 3 are best. But most of the time, you should try and keep your warriors together in a rough formation. This is done to boost morale. Every soldier fights better, knowing he's not alone, and also to avoid having the enemy formation overrun you. Bear in mind, however, that once the fighting itself begins, this formation will dissolve as new strategies come into play. Which brings us to the combat strategy itself, in which you will need to decide the maneuver that will allow you to gain the advantage. Unfortunately, there is no single strategy that I can give you that will win the day, regardless of the circumstance. This is because the strategy will depend entirely upon the environment in which it is carried out. Thus, you will need to be tactful in your decisions. Personally, though, I like to try and keep my warriors together as long as possible. That way they can work in conjunction with each other. You know, the right soldier's shield covering the left soldier, whose shield in turn covers the soldier to his left. It works wonders against a weaker opponent, but can be dangerous against a stronger one. Does all of this make sense to you? Excellent. Now, permit me to give you this one last piece of advice before I retire my weary vocal cords for the day. When it comes down to it, an opposing general's greatest weakness is failure to adapt to change, to invent new tactics, to counter new opponents. Many generals are terrified of taking a chance and changing from a seemingly flawless routine, and at times that can become the general's weakness. Remember that, if ever you find yourself facing a general that you know. At any rate, I grow weary of idle chatter. We will talk again at a later date. Immortality. There is something that I have been meaning to confess to you for some time now. I want to explain an analogy that I referenced earlier. No doubt by now you have heard me talk of the demon inside, the malevolent beast that only emerges when I am drawn into battle. You also had the unfortunate experience to meet the creature in the abyss of the faithless, when you saved me from the hordes of undead. Yet, do you have any true idea of what exactly the demon inside stands for? To some extent, yes. But I prefer to think of it as a representation for all of my primitive emotions. The animalistic instincts that bequeath morals. An animal does not harbor morals and concepts of benevolence. An animal fights mindlessly to survive, and for its own advancement, nothing more. Though, by definition, many of the emotions associated with the demon inside are beyond that which an animal is capable of experiencing. I still think of them as being too primitive to attribute in any way to a truly sentient creature. Hence, the demon inside is the mindless beast. At the beast's core, anger, hatred, revenge, desire, all of which spring forth the moment the blood starts to fall. To most people, they are emotions that come and go, and can generally be controlled through concentration and integrity. But to me, well, many people have a beast of some sort riding their back. A beast that springs forth from time to time, to reap all kinds of chaos. In my case, however, I am the sole remaining threads of an Imperial that rides the beast's back, leaping forth occasionally to reap acts of humanity. I am its slave. I go where it leads, and I can only drive it to a small extent. For the most part, it controls my every action. Thus, I become the beast. No, I am the demon that lurks inside. I become Cleon the Butcher from time to time. Brief moments of sanity amidst a haze of bloodlust and fury. The sane moments have become progressively fewer and fewer, and no longer do I have any control whatsoever when the fighting begins. Slowly but surely, the beast is consuming me, pushing me aside, as its malevolence becomes the core of my very being. It is just a matter of time before, well, perhaps you might want to keep an eye over your shoulder whenever the fighting starts. Just remember this, my friend. Should I finally lose my battle with the demon inside, cut me down where I stand before I can do the same to you. That is all that I wanted to say for now. We will talk soon enough. I am sure of it.
Even though all is quiet here now, I can still sense what once lurked here for more than 2 centuries. The area is tainted and fetid, more so than the rest of the abyss of the faithless at least. As Cleon the Butcher of Armindale is gone, I can only assume that you have succeeded in your task to resurrect him. He has been given another chance at life, and another opportunity to avoid his fate and escape this place. Yet, I cannot help but wonder if he deserved such a gift. Did he truly deserve a chance at redemption? There are others here who will never have such a chance. Others who were never given a chance to avoid this place initially. Does Cleon the Butcher of Armindale, after all of his crimes, truly deserve a second chance when I was never even given such a chance? The weight of Cleon's actions weighs heavily on your shoulders, doesn't it? Since it was, after all, you who steered him on his malevolent course. Your guilt is a part of what drove you to give him this option to choose his own path through life. Yet where does your guilt reside concerning me? So quick you are to condemn me, to forget that I ever existed, even for only a brief moment. Or is it that you don't want to remember your crime? Yes, you personally may have had no control over what your pre-incarnation did, yet that does not entirely take away the responsibility. And so I wonder, do you feel guilt for your pre-incarnation's crimes and simply suppress it? Or are you like him and feel no guilt at all?
The duplicate continues speaking, ignoring your words, and you cannot help but wonder if they even heard them.
Despite everything that occurred, your pre-incarnation accomplished great things, malevolent things to be certain, yet great nonetheless. You harbour the same streak of greatness in you, yet you are not him. What you accomplish will ultimately be determined by one thing: whether or not you can accept the guilt for your pre-incarnation's crimes and attempt redemption for them. Yet time is short. The enemy draws near. My fate suddenly seems uncertain.
This is the one. Take him.
Greetings to you.
How goes it?
Fine.
I saw
Immortality throughout here. Let's...
Well met.
Yes? Very
I couldn't... And I can see now that you have a question you wish to ask me. Speak it, and maybe I can bring about closure to what bothers you so. Why you would wish to return there is beyond me. Yet to answer your question, I would guess that you need only do whatever it was you did when you found me there. Somehow, you entered the abyss of the faithless and returned of your own volition. Replicate that action, and you will be able to return.
Hello, Master Wizard.
Hello, Associate. You cannot even begin to fathom the incomprehensible misconduct of wasting my unaccountably valuable time. Hence, do not waste it.
The alchemist cautiously takes the potion of undeath from you, removes the stopper, and gingerly inhales its contents.
I'd need to perform a few distillation tests to be sure. However, I would speculate that this is a necromantic potion. It seems to be mostly comprised of fairly common alchemical ingredients, with one or two rarer components. I could, provided that I had the rare ingredients and the right incentive to make it.
The alchemist nods.
That amount will be sufficient to guarantee my services, for the meantime, at least. At any rate, I am fairly sure I know what type of potion this is, and I should probably point out that it is a crime to create it within the city. Since you have provided me with sufficient incentive to ignore such laws, I will create it regardless. However, you need to ensure that you do not mention it to anyone here, lest we both end up in the Imperial prison. There are two rare ingredients in this potion, yet only one of which I cannot obtain on my own. That ingredient is the decomposing flesh of an undead creature born of an innocent that is more than 200 years old. Unfortunately, undead creatures of such an age are particularly rare. Gaining the knowledge of the age of an undead creature, as well as its origins, enough to determine it was born of an innocent, is rarer still. However, this is the primary component in the potion, and as such it cannot be brewed without this component. If you want your potion, you will need to acquire that ingredient. I will remain here and prepare the other ingredients on the off chance that you manage to acquire that one. Return to me when, if you succeed. You intrude upon my presence, disrupt my work, and subsequently disturb my very thought processes once again. Did you find what you sought?
The alchemist looks genuinely surprised, yet she quickly regains her composure and offers a mocking round of applause at your accomplishment.
Well, you have managed to prove me wrong, a feat not easily performed, by your success. In truth, I had not expected to see you again. Let us waste no more time. Give me the ingredient, and I will start the distillation process.
The alchemist takes the ancient decomposing flesh from you, retching slightly from the distinct odor of rotting meat that follows.
This process will take some time to complete. Return to me after I have had time to create the potion. Yes,
Hello, associate.
greetings, guildmate. You return, and just in time. If I had been forced to wait too much, I may have been tempted to sell the potion to another buyer. These necromantic potions are worth quite a bit on the black market due to their illegal nature and the rarity of their components. Here is your potion. Be gone now, and let us never speak again, lest we fall under suspicion.
If you are planning to return to the abyss of the faithless, I will go with you. I spent a great deal of time in that place, and I know it in ways you can never understand. You have your own reasons for going there, which do not concern me in the slightest. I do not care why you wish to return, only that you do plan to return. I will see where I spent the last 2 centuries of my unlife with mortal eyes. I will see what fate awaits me when next I am slain. Drink the potion of undeath whenever it suits you. I will drink whatever remains. Immortality. Let's get... Immortality. Immortality. Are you...
Here!
I suppose I have a moment. What is it?
All that stuff about having to set trolls on fire is a bunch of hooey. They don't like fire, but a good sword will cut them up fine.
I hear you.
Goodbye. Like an assassin's knife into an unsuspecting heart, Selzar streaks around the abyss of the faithless, leaving no trace of her presence. With wisdom born of her mortal years, she chooses her victims carefully, studying them for days before making her move. On this particular day, she is making her way towards the Fiend's camp with her predictable cat-like grace, when something catches her eye. It is a stranger in the camp, and one that lacks the foresight to realize just how viable a target she is. With a slight smile, she approaches the stranger, carefully surveying her every move, reading her abilities as one might read a book. She passes close to her, close enough to slit her throat before continuing on her way, with the stranger none the wiser to her intentions. Content that she knows enough about the stranger to deal with her efficiently when her time comes.
Selzar frowns, as if baffled by her own words. She then promptly makes her departure, walking in a decidedly self-conscious manner.
You look skilled in alteration. Maybe you...
Time is a relative concept, yet it does not exist in this place. Day and night mean little to us, and so time becomes an elusive concept. To measure the passing of time, we are forced to rely on the Tamrielic dates in which new arrivals die, and to use that to determine months and years. Yet, there is no purpose in developing a calendar while spending eternity in this place. Primarily due to the fact that we are trapped here for all eternity. And thus, time serves little purpose other than to remind us of how long we have been suffering. But also, because specific points in the ebb and flow of time have little meaning in the abyss of the faithless. Here, time does not follow the rules of the mortal realm. Some of us died thousands of years ago. Others died only yesterday. Some have not yet died, as far as the Tamrielic calendar is concerned, and yet they are still here. In this place, you see all that has happened, and all that is going to happen. The abyss is the nexus point of time, the center axis around which all of time rotates.
Karen chuckles in a husky manner, yet his laugh is forced and devoid of any real humor.
The relativity of time in the abyss of the faithless always confuses new arrivals. I've given up trying to explain it to some of them. But you seem genuinely interested, and so I will elaborate. Look up there atop the southeastern watchtower, overlooking the abyssal lowlands. Do you see the Argonian ruined tale? The last date that he can remember before he died is from a date which, from my best efforts to approximate the Tamrielic years, has not yet passed. As far as Tamriel is concerned, he has not yet died. Yet. His presence here means that he is going to die in the manner that he recalls. As this place is timeless and is not bound by the normal rules of time, the past, present, and future from Tamriel's perspective have merged as one. Thus, this place is, in truth, the only way for one to truly steal a glimpse at the future. Alas, one has to die to come here. Not really an equitable trade, in my opinion. I have been in the abyss of the faithless for so long now that I cannot remember why it is that I am in this place. By my reckoning, I have been here for in excess of 1,000 years by the Tamrielic calendar. Long enough for my memory to fade into inky blackness. I remember that I was a priest, and I remember that I renounced my vows. Yet I remember little else of consequence. In this place, time is fleeting, and at the same time, it is endless. The fact that I have been here for 1,000 years means little, for I will be here for 100,000 more. You had best come to grips with that, lest the knowledge that all of eternity is stretched before you destroys your mind. I have, yet I do not know where she is now. She left our city, and I use that term loosely, about the same time as the Fiends arrived. I know not how the Fiends came to this place, only that they were hunting one soul in particular. From your look-alikes' frantic flight, I would be willing to guess that they are hunting her. I do not doubt that we will speak again, be it yesterday, tomorrow, or 100 years from now. We will speak again. And perhaps by then, you will know what it is to stare eternity in the face and know innately that it is your enemy. Farewell.
Time means nothing to the damned here in the abyss of the faithless. And yet, it means everything to us. We have all the time in the world, all of eternity as a matter of fact, to reflect and regret our faithless mortal lives. And as an eternity of time stretches before us, so too does the abyss of the faithless reach out endlessly around us. Make no mistake, we are not the only ones here in the abyss. There are others, countless others, so many that you could never count them all. We are merely a group of damned souls who have banded together for mutual safety. A symbiotic relationship, despite our conflicting personalities. We are but a single grain of sand on the vast, sprawling coastline that is the abyss of the faithless, forever subjected to the ebb and the flow of the tides of time. Thus, time means nothing to us, and yet it means everything. Amusing, no? Though the others here, who you may call my companions, or as near to such a concept as one can have in this place, harbor stories of greatness. Mine, on the other hand, was one of abject failure before I could ever aspire to such things. You see, I was not satisfied with the ordinary provincial life of those around me. I had no desire to repeat the same menial tasks day after day. I did not believe that I was meant to be yet another Dunmer girl in her native land. I was destined to become something more. All dark elves have an innate magical ability, and I felt that mine was more proficient than most. I had hoped to enroll in the Arcane University and make my career in studying spells, mixing potions, and discovering sources of magical power. With my abilities, there was no doubt that I would soon come to be able to bend the very laws of time and space beneath the prowess of my mind. You can imagine my despair when the Arcane University refused me. It drove me to blaspheme against what little religious beliefs I still held. Instead, I was accepted to the Armindale Academy of the Magus. Yet rather than using it as an opportunity to build upon my flaws, I saw it as an insult to my abilities. Being forced to study at a lesser academy, surely I deserved more than that. I blamed the gods. I cursed them for my fate. Each and every one of them. It did not matter whether they were a Dunmer god or not. I held them responsible. Armindale was destroyed by General Cleon the Butcher and his army. In the chaos and confusion that surrounded the attack, I found myself facing a number of the general's soldiers. They ordered my surrender. Had I developed control over my pride, I might have complied and lived. Yet I would not surrender to mere soldiers, not with the powers that I commanded at my fingertips. I believed I could destroy them all.
Aralita smiles briefly, betraying a slight sense of regret towards her actions.
As I am now here, I'm sure you can imagine what fate befell me. Travel safe and without regret. But be cautious. Not everyone in the Abyss, or even in the City of the Damned for that matter, are as honest and truthful as I am.
Hi. Greeting. Morning.
Meska simply stares at you, grinning stupidly. Whether cursed with madness from birth or driven insane by the Abyss, you cannot tell.
I've seen you watching me. I've seen you trying to figure me out. I've seen you trying to determine whether or not you could take me. I see now that you know that you couldn't take me. Else you wouldn't be here talking to me. You should be wary. You should be afraid. You should be damn near soiling yourself. For you stand in the presence of Sergeant the Heretic, slayer of 100 priests, lover of 100 succubi, the epitome of pure, God-smiting malevolence. This is my reward for a life of diligent devotion to my beliefs. Are you deaf? Is there naught between your ears but dust and refuse? I've already told you why I am here. I spent every waking moment of my life performing every heretic act I could manage. All for the glory of my new religion, of which I was the head priest. I cut the throats of the foolish followers of other deities. I mated with all manner of fiends, and produced the bastard children that haunt your nightmares. I made the rivers run red with blood, all for the glory of the New Order. When I died, I was blessed and sent to this paradise as a reward for my hard work. And so, I am here. Seeing just one of you is more than enough. If I were to see two, I might just find myself retching in disgust at your pathetic, meaningless existence. Yes, run away. Run into the light to hide from the darkness. I'll be watching. I'll be in your nightmares. My bastard children will follow you forevermore.
You look like a bright one. The sky here is as black as charcoal, and the rain falls endlessly, like tears of misery from a stricken child. It is almost as if the turbulent storms that gather unerringly overhead are the very embodiment of hopelessness that this place represents. We are the damned, and all of us are here for a reason. The decay you see around you speaks volumes of our crimes against theology. And so I wonder, what have you done to earn your place in the abyss of the faithless? I am here because my cynicism in life and my view as a realist jaded me to the purpose of following a patron deity. I could not see the purpose in wasting my life in servitude to a god, when that god would not repay my worship when I needed it most. Good people, pious people, suffered the most terrible, agony-filled of fates at my hands, and the hands of my comrades. Yet the most malevolent of individuals were blessed with peaceful deaths, and departed Tamriel without paying penance for their crimes. To me, the gods were merely players in some divine game, and we mortals were merely pawns and the means to an end. Why worship a non-interventionist deity? That was my belief in life, and because I never found redemption, that became the foundation of my belief. When I died at the hands of those who had previously been my comrades, camped out in front of the ruins of a fallen city north of the Imperial City, I was sent to the void of the faithless rather than to the realm of a chosen deity. Thus, my crime, the crime of ignorance, has earned me my place here, forever cursed to spend eternity in this wasteland. And yet I wonder, could things have been different? Could the opinions of another have changed my way of thinking and saved me from this fate? I guess that ultimately I will never know. I have indeed. You look a great deal like her, yet I know that you are not her. Though it is obvious you shared the same starting point, life has dictated that the two of you followed different paths. Thus, you and her share certain similarities, but are far from identical. She has spent almost her entire life in this place, and I believe that you know the reason why she was cursed to spend eternity here. To the same extent, I believe that you know why she has been forced to flee from our small township here and go into hiding elsewhere in the abyss. She and I have spoken at great length and on a great many things. Yet she was particularly curious about the beauty Tamriel holds. She often asked me to describe details of the landscape, the weather, the cities, and the people that inhabited Tamriel, for she never saw such things. In particular, I remember that she was fond of rainbows and the arc of colors they traced in the Tamrielic skies. Many times she had me recount details of some of the more impressive rainbows I had seen during my travels. I believe that she struggled with the concepts of a rainbow, for my description was not the most specific, and yet that never stopped her asking. Find my friend, bring her back to me, so that the two of us can spend the rest of eternity imagining rainbows in the accursed sky overhead.
Ruined Tail resumes staring at the sky overhead, his expression blank.